I was averaging load of 980 pounds for 7 to 9 repetitions per week without having this low back pump. Chris Duffin here, and I want to talk a little bit about the discussion that's going on SquatU's page around low back pumps in regards to squatting and deadlifting. So 2 caveats I want to make sure that are placed first. One is I don't want people to be fearful of movement. A low back pump is not an indicator of something dramatic bad's going to happen. It's just an indicator, and we're going to dive into that more. Second, I'm not one that believes that there should be no spinal movement, okay? Actually, if we lock the whole body down and the spine down, we become highly unathletic. But we're going to talk about that and the relativity to squat and deadlift in just a minute. Now, I believe this page is going to show up on SquatU's page, so a number of people may not know who I am. So a little background about me. I have squatted 1,000 pounds, 1,001 for a triple. I have done 1,001 pound deadlift for almost a triple, which is still the standing Guinness World Record. And so I'm the only human that's ever done both of these and grand goals. Okay. Now, besides just being a lifter, the principles that we're going to talk about here are also backed by an industry-leading scientific advisory board. So you can go to Kabuki Strength Advisory Board if you want to check out and see some of the best physical therapists, chiropractors, kinesiologists, orthopedic surgeons, spine biomechanists in the world. Additionally, I'm an engineer who's specialized in biomechanics, and some of my products' inventions have actually been awarded for scientific innovation, specifically in regards to leverages around squatting. Okay, so I'm qualified to talk on this subject. That said, I'm just going to share my personal experiences. So in my time in lifting, 30 plus years, I got to a point where I was squatting in the mid 700 pounds, deadlifting in the low 800 pounds. And at the time, and even before this, I was experiencing severe low back pumps while training. And my technique always looked spot on. People used me as a reference point for, like, look at that, it looks perfect. But the pumps were so bad after aggressive sessions, like I'd drive home and barely, be having trouble walking. Not from pain, just that pump, right? I dreaded long drives, airplane rides, things like that, because then it would start tightening up. And I certainly wouldn't be able to jump out of a long drive and go and train or do anything like that. And I would avoid those right before, training right before that because of the issues. But then I started making some changes. And so these changes are, again, ones you could reference our advisory board that back this approach. But it really comes down to really not what the squat or deadlift looking perfect, but what's happening within the body and how we're engaging all the muscles. So the changes I started making was one around my breathing. So taking this approach around diaphragmatic breathing, okay? I'm gonna talk just principles. I'm not gonna talk about what they are because SquatU's produced some great videos and content around this. Personally, Kabuki Strength has produced thousands of hours of education around this that are available on YouTube and the Kabuki virtual coaching Instagram page. And, we hold seminars all over the place, virtually right now, and coach athletes as well. So the information's there. So just diaphragmatic breathing, really getting this in general approach and doing that, really focusing on it for like 20 breaths, 2 or 3 times a day, just to really help reset those patterns. And then while lifting, okay, I talked about not wanting to limit spinal movement for athletic purposes, but when we're looking to push significant loads to the limits, we want to be able to control and manage our spine biomechanics. It has the largest global impact on the entire system, okay? And so to do that, it starts with a couple simple things. And this is what I did, was really making sure that my sternum or my diaphragm was aligned directly in opposition to my pelvic floor. So that's really actively engaging those positions. We're not talking about crunching. This is a neutral spine with the natural curvature in the spine, but it is very active to get into these positions to really control that. Again, lots of videos on how to do this already. Once those are aligned, you must do this first. You can't brace or do anything, and I'm not going to try not to use the word brace because that's going to cue people maybe the wrong direction. But we'll have to have this first, and then through descension of the diaphragm, it's eccentrically loading all the structures of the abdominal wall, the abdominal cavity, as well as the thoracolumbar musculature all the way around the back, okay? So once we do that, there's a lot of things that are naturally going to happen. So we're going to get a co-contraction of all those same muscles, as well as a co-contraction of the pelvic floor, all right? And that's going to create this concentric outer loading of that, as well as just having the load. Automatically, you're going to get some of that concentric reaction. You don't have to necessarily focus on that, okay? And that creates this massive pressurized ball. It should be 360 degrees, and it creates all this pressure, and it's actually pushing on the organs and all the muscle, everything around the spine as well. So it's not stiffening in just the movement and holding the isometric load of the low back, okay? The primary piece is this, all right? Those muscles in the low back are massively small, okay? We've also got to engage the lat to tie that shoulder down into that structure as well, and tie it into, again, the core. I hate that word, as well. Okay, that's going to work again for stiffening and controlling the spinal position while we maintain load. Once we've got that to happen, I'm not going to tell you, this is the process that I went through, okay? And as I started doing that, the pumps started going away. And what this allowed me to do was start squatting and deadlifting significantly more volume and frequency than I'd ever done before. All of a sudden, I shot up. I squatted 840 pounds. I squatted 850 pounds. I set the all-time world record for the squat in the 220-pound class. And I set it again at 860 pounds. And then I set it again at 881 pounds, 400 kilo at 220, all right? This was the heaviest 4 times body weight competition squat ever done in competition at the time, all right? My deadlift continued to go up. I had some nerve damage from stuff prior that's affected my grip and just weak grip, okay? Let's admit it. So I retired from competitive lifting and started doing exhibition feats of strength, raising money for charities, and I did that for about 5 years. And it's during the course of that I decided I wanted to do some motivational work and just tie it to my lifting as well as the fundraising. And that's when I set the Grand Goals campaign and chasing that 1,000-pound squat and deadlift. So during the course of this, with using these principles, I was able, on the deadlift, when I chased the 1,000-pound deadlift, twice a week I was training, and I was training 12 to 15 repetitions per session at 900 and above pounds. It was a year-long training cycle, and it was the last 2 to 3 months I did this every week, okay? That's the type of volume and intensity I was able to push to, and if I felt like that, it wouldn't have been it. Well, I'd never even gotten there. On the 1,000-pound squat cycle, this was another year-long training cycle that culminated in the last about 3 months. First, I started working up and hitting over 900 pounds for around 7 to 9 repetitions a week total per session. And then it worked up to 925 and above, then 950 and above. And then finally, the last month, I was averaging load of 980 pounds for 7 to 9 repetitions per week without having this low back pump. But let's take a step back. I did earlier. So when I was around 800 and 850 pounds, and it's happened at other times as well, I started getting that, okay? And I started questioning myself, like, can I move that? Am I going to be able to continue? Because it would start affecting the volumes and that I'd be able to hit and the frequency, and I wouldn't be recovered for the next session, and then start leading to back pain. And I knew I wouldn't be able to achieve my goal. And I had to do a hard look. Hey, what's going wrong, and I had to get back to basics. What are the basics involves? Really simple stuff. Breathing again, getting in 90 patterns and practicing those positions, okay? Doing some movements like dead bugs. Again, focusing on that relationship of the diaphragm to the pelvic floor and how it's inflating, making sure that it was getting that full 360 degrees instead of all focused into the belly and pushing outwards in other areas, all right? So it was an indicator, and by addressing it, I was able to increase my performance. So I'm not saying don't lift or don't do anything, but I'm saying you might have some opportunities on the table if you check the ego and go, should I address something? It doesn't mean I need to back down in lifting, but what should I be looking at? How should I be trying to correct it? This stuff works. And it's not just me. This is what we coach. Personally, I've coached hundreds of people to do this, and our coaches themselves and our seminars, we've touched thousands of people that we've been able to have a huge impact. And we're talking a lot of high-level lifters to entry level to old sedentary, everywhere along the spectrum. We've seen results from putting this stuff into place. It's an indicator, and what it means is you don't have to accept the fact that this is the way that it's supposed to be either. Thank you.
They say that energy flows where attention goes, so I pay no mind. Why waste my time with all these negative cats scratching? So caught up in their egos, these people have lost.